Welcome back to LearnToProgram.tv. My name is Mark Lassoff, and this is the third lesson in the C programming series. The C programming series is designed to get you ready to start game programming or programming more serious application using C or even C++. In this third unit, we're going to go over a couple of different things. Mostly we're going to deal with the idea of character input and strings, but also we're going to learn how to get the user input from the console. Without any further delay, let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and open a brand new source file here in my dev C++ development environment, and I'm going to immediately save it as a .c file. So we'll call this strings1.c. Remember, you got to save it as a .c because if you save it as a .cpp, it will not compile correctly in the development environment. Okay, so let's do our include stdio.h. And you'll remember that that header allows us access to the standard input and output commands within the C programming language. And I'm going to go ahead and now do our main function, int main, and then the opening and closing brackets, which I like to put first. And now we're going to declare a variable, and this is going to be a char variable. And I'm going to call this char gender, because we're going to ask the user to supply their gender, but they're going to supply it by either typing in an M for male or an F for female. So, of course, we're going to have to prompt the user as to what they should type in. So, please select your gender, M/F. So that'll key them in as to, or clue them in rather, as to what key to press. And oops, let's go ahead and make that a printf, not a print statement. Okay, so now the user is going to be keyed in as to, okay, this is what we want you to type in. Following that, now we're going to have to actually scan the console to get the user's input. So I'm going to have to set the variable gender equal to getChar, which will get a single character from the user and then save it into the variable gender, which is a character variable. Wow, we're apparently making a lot of typos today. There we go, getChar. So now, if I compile and run this at this point, which I'm going to do, there's my compile and run. The prompt comes up, please select your gender, M or F. The user types a response. And of course, we put nothing else in the program, so the program terminates at that point. But, again, the getChar statement here, which we've used before simply to keep the console window on the screen and prevent it from disappearing after the program executes, here is getting a character and storing it in the gender variable. So one more time, if I go ahead and run the program, executes just like that. So let's take the value now that's stored in the gender variable and actually use it in the program to echo out some type of response to the user. So most simply, we want to tell the user exactly what they input. So printf, you selected. And now we're going to use the signifier for character data type, which is %c, comma, and the variable name. So this should put output, you selected either M or F, depending on what the user selects. Now, I'm going to add a getChar here, and believe it or not, I'm going to have to add another one. And the reason for that is sometimes the enter that the user presses when they use the getChar gets buffered. And the second getChar statement here on line 11 will actually be ignored because that enter will actually cause that getChar statement to go on to the next line. So we need two of them. So you'll see how this works here in a second. Let's again go ahead and compile and run. So I'm going to say M, and it says you selected M because it's storing M in the gender variable right here. Gender equals getChar. I'll run it one more time just so you can see the execution again. So of course if we type F, or really any other letter, it's simply going to give us that value and then wait for us to hit another character before the program ceases executing. So that's dealing with single character input, but of course most of the time our user is going to want to input more than one character, or our programmer will require it. So that's called a string, and we're going to deal with string inputs here in another program, which I'll go ahead and open a new file, and I'll save this just as strings2.c. And dealing with strings or multiple character inputs is not all that complicated, but it does require some additional work from just using the char data type for simple single letter inputs. So we'll start this C program like we always do with our include to include the standard input-output package. Oops, need my pound sign there. Okay, and then of course our main function, which is where our program starts executing, always in our main function. And now I'm going to declare a char variable again, but I'm going to do it a little bit differently. Char asterisk username equals Mark. Now, what that asterisk indicates is that we are using the variable username here, but actually that it's a pointer variable. And I'll talk a lot about pointers in a future part of the course. But for right now, just know that it's a pointer and that take it for granted that we need it here in order to make this work. Now, if I'm going to output the string, your name is, I use the %s in this case, and then the variable name. And let's use our get char to keep this on the screen so we can actually see the result. So the username string is Mark, pointer variable. We know that because of the asterisk. And we printf your name is, and then we use the %s signifier. And that, of course, is substituted for the value in username. So let's compile and run. There we go. Your name is Mark. So a pretty simple start. Now let's go ahead and actually have the user input a string. I'm going to create another new source file that I'll use for the third program, and I'll just immediately save that as strings3.c. Okay, and I've got my strings3.c. I'm going to start with my include, standard input-output.h, and my main function. And now I'm going to declare the variable that will hold the string when the user inputs it. Now this is going to look different than the way we've declared it before. That's different, isn't it? I'll go through and explain the whole thing in a minute. But roughly, we are going ahead and creating an array of variables called name, a number of variables called name, 10 of them to be exact in this case, and that we're placing in that string right now a \0, which is the string termination character, or a null character in this case, which ends the string. So we've reserved, more or less, 10 char variables, stored them in memory, and they're named name0, name1, name2, name3, using these hard brackets here. You'll kind of see how this works in a second. So let's go ahead and prompt the user